Hey everybody, our next section is going to be focusing on ideology and the issues. So where do the different ideologies line up on the issues? If you have your notes out, and you should, it's this section right here on page 15. We got liberal and conservative ideologies and where they fall on these issues. Okay, we'll get into parties next a little bit, all right? So that's what we're going to look at. So here we go. We got that open. Thank you very much. So ideology issues. We have our left, we have our right. We got the two groups that are the main two ideologies in our country. Let's see where they sit. So, like, looking at current issue kind of stuff, not your notes, but kind of the big issues that happen. Some of the big things involve gun control, Second Amendment, right? So, left being more pro gun control, like, not necessarily banning guns, but like more requirements around guns versus being pro Second Amendment. The abortion issue is huge, pro choice versus pro life. The idea of like how you can express yourself. So, big question is flag burning. With the right saying no flag burning, the left saying it's okay based on protests and that kind of deal. Also, in terms of how people protest, marches and rallies, that kind of thing for protest ideas and censorship. What should prisons do, right? Big question about how do prisons work. So, like on the left, it's more about rehabilitation. How do you make people ready to come back to society? Right, saying more about punishment. Immigration, right? Limiting immigration versus amnesty, that kind of stuff for undocumented people coming into the country. Schools, right? Do you do school choice or public schools? How should it be? Where should money kind of go? Should be able to choose and get money for going to private schools, like through vouchers, that kind of deal, or does more money go towards the public school situation? So, kind of going on here from what we're looking at, we're going to kind of look at the economy as our first issue. So, the economy, really simply, on the left side, it's more about government getting involved in the economy. Okay, so it could be like things like minimum wage, making jobs in public work projects, so building bridges, building roads. A lot of the Bidenomics things that you may have heard in the past are about there. I think back to like in history class with the Great Depression, the New Deal. That was government kind of provided jobs. Basically, government shall provide basic living for people. So this is like things like minimum wage, housing, all those kind of deals. On the right, it's a little bit different. So the right, they want less government involvement. So the government's supposed to stay out of things like prices and wages and regulations, try to keep things as non-government as possible. So the phrase here is laissez-faire, which means hands off. They also want to trust the market, right, supply and demand, to decide those ideas. And basically government not competing with private industry. So we shouldn't have private governments like, say, government health insurance competing with private health insurance and keeping that kind of stuff out of it. So that's where the economy part comes in. You also have distribution of wealth, which basically means where does the money go? So the left is like, we'll kind of get more involved, saying that if you have a lot of rich and a lot of poor, you got to try and keep things more equal. And they'll utilize things like taxes and other stuff to help lower that gap between people. And so try to make sure that there are equal opportunities in education, healthcare, and just kind of help people out a little bit. And so they will also like utilize government money to help kind of like help keep the economy going. So maybe using stimulus checks or using government projects, give people jobs, and get things cranking up again. On the right side, more and more like businesses have less regulations. Let's let them profit, right? Profits are a good thing. There's less regulations. There are more profits. People work harder, that kind of deal. So we'll have less taxes on businesses, so they can like make more money, hire more people, keep things going. They're really not so necessarily worried about rich and poor. It's more about like choice people make. So if you make good choices, bad choices, whatever, that's kind of where you're going to end up at. And it's not so much about, and they're kind of okay if there's a bigger gap, because that's kind of where the poor choices come into. You should be taxing people who are making money because they work for it, that kind of situation. And a regulation of businesses, same kind of deal here. Though business regulation kind of means that how much does a government influence what business do on a day-to-day basis. So on the left side, they're okay with more involvement, kind of things like working conditions, things that protect the worker and the consumer. So things like consumer protection laws, minimum wage laws, all those kind of things. More involved, make sure that workers and consumers aren't getting kind of hosed by the businesses, making sure that work is safe, that pay is fair, all that kind of stuff. On the other side, looking at less control again. Less control to say that we trust businesses do their job. If people aren't happy with their job, they're going to leave their job naturally and find a better one. If they're not getting paid enough, the market will kind of figure stuff out, and so have less regulations of what people are happening. Obviously, keep like the basic rights there, that kind of stuff is a big part of it, but not do so much with regulating what businesses do on a day-to-day basis, so they can make their own decisions, do their own thing. On the other side, moving on to our next topic here is social problems. So social problems would be things like poverty, crime, civil rights, all those kind of things. Okay, as on the left side, they're looking at a lot more like government getting involved in civil rights, making sure civil rights happen. So helping minority groups, whether it be racial, ideology, poverty, prisoners, all that kind of stuff, and how they help civil rights for people in those groups, right? And essentially, we're not going to keep things as they are, but try to help people with the government's help get better. And also think about things like free speech, pro-choice, anti-capital punishment, so anti-death penalty, more about people's privacy. All those kind of things are really big things that they're going to push on that left side, but the government getting involved in a lot of that stuff. On the right side, a little bit different, right? They want less less government control, so they're going to say most things should be dealt with at a state level or local level. So, for example, it comes to say abortion kind of stuff, right? They're going to say that should be a state thing, or prison stuff that should be a state thing. Even say death penalty, state thing. And they also look at kind of like the values, so kind of family, faith, patriotism being really important things that are part of the country. Obviously, there's no official religion, but they argue that some of the religious practices, that kind of stuff, do play a role in making our laws. And if they need to censor some stuff, that's okay, because we're not going to try and make things change a lot. The word status quo is put on here a lot. Try and keep things kind of the way they are. Okay, that's what the big goal is, to keep things. Taxation. Biggest things on the left, taxes are okay. Taxes can be used, especially when you tax people who make more money, to use that money to help programs for those less fortunate. And so it's kind of the idea that if you make more money, you can pay for more stuff. On the right side, it's very different, right? They want less taxes. So taxes are like your personal infringement of freedom. You should be punishing those who make profit. They'd rather have like a flat tax, okay, which means basically that everyone's going to pay 10%, versus the left would say, I want the rich to pay 50% and those who don't make as much money to pay 20%. So, the bigger chunk that you make, the more you're going to pay. Whereas on the right wants to have a flat tax across the board. We all pay 10%. Or maybe you have like a consumption tax, or like a sales tax kind of situation instead of your income being taxed. Religion. Pretty much the way the left is going to say, strict separation of church and state. The right's going to say you can use someone's religious values to influence the laws and utilize some of those values to make our laws. Foreign affairs, kind of how you get involved in stuff, right? The right's going to be very much like U.S. first kind of stuff. We're going to, protect our role in those places, but we're going to take care of our country first and do a lot of tariffs. Tariffs are taxed on imports. If you maybe listen to any of this stuff in the election right now, former President Trump has talked a lot about tariffs and using it to protect the economy, making sure we're not bringing foreign goods in. On the other side, on the left side, they want to work on spreading democracy, human rights, getting involved in countries, helping the United Nations, make the world a safe place, those kind of things, and getting U.S. more involved in other places. Now, the biggest one here is we should write down the scope of government, okay? Essentially, how big is the government? How involved are they, okay? The left wants more involvement. The right wants less involvement. So that means you have to hire less people. So on the left side, if we're doing things like regulations, the standards of living, all that kind of deal, we're going to have more people working for the government, paying more money, needing more taxes. And so they're okay with that bigger government doing more stuff. On the right side, they want less government control. So a smaller government, less government employees, less taxes, right? And so they're not necessarily worried about people. They don't want the government doing too much stuff, controlling businesses, and staying very, very small. Just keeping track of basic rights, basic ideas, defense, all that kind of stuff, and being as essentially little involved as possible. Those are the big differences in our ideology, everybody. We'll get more involved in this in class, do some activities with it. Thank you for your time and your attention. You're awesome. Don't forget that.